Team Chrome!
To summon the almighty SLIFER, the Sky Dragon!
Subscribe to Team Chrome.
His Egyptian god card.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Team Chrome. My name is Nalo and today we're going to be taking a look at a branded revived Sky God deck profile. I think this deck is pretty cool and it's a deck that I'll probably just have on the side. Thanks to the 2022 Megatins, this deck is actually a lot more accessible than it was before. For those of you out there that like DM and still want to play modern format Yu-Gi-Oh, this deck is kind of nice as well because it does have some callbacks to SLIFER, so that might give you guys some interest. So here's the deck profile. 3 Aluber, not much to say about this card. It's basically able to search any single card in the deck that you need at any given time if it's summoned. Very important card in the deck, obviously. No reason not to run it at 3. For the hand trap lineup, you actually run a ton of hand traps in this deck because your main goal is to resolve Revive Sky God, which is going to draw you a bunch of cards. And the best cards for you to draw on your opponent's turn are going to be hand traps, so that's why you play so many. We run triple Bell, triple Ash, triple Gamma, triple DD Crow, and of course once we get over to the one-ofs we'll have the Psyframe Driver. But this is the hand trap lineup for the deck. Luckily branded is a fairly small amount of cards that you have to play to make it function. But these are the hand traps that we went with. Obviously these are probably the best hand traps that currently exist in the current formats. You don't want to play stuff like Droll because it doesn't really do anything. DD Crow and Bell are very good against Tearlaments. Gamma's good against pretty much anything with an effect. Ash Blossom, obviously just good generic hand trap right now. Actually can hurt Tearlaments if they don't have enough follow-up. Bell also very good against Sprite when they try to revive stuff with Elf. On to the 2 of monsters. We just play 2 Fallen of Albaz and 2 Despian Tragedy. A little bit of weird ratios here, but this is a pretty budget version of the deck. Tragedy is a very good card just generically for a lot of the branded plays. You could definitely cut this to 1 and just play something else, but it's a solid card, especially to send off Branded Fusion if you're doing normal branded plays. And then of course, you need Fallen of Albaz because it's sort of the backbone of many of your fusion monsters and a lot of them require it. Also a Contact Fusion on the field, which is pretty nice. Next up is the branded Lost package. This is a pretty cool package that is honestly a mainstay in any variant of branded right now. Albion usually able to give you a free draw, which is pretty important a lot of the time. This card comes up a surprising amount. Branded Lost, obviously very good cards, basically just Magical Meltdown and gives you extra resources. Very good card there. Kit able to also give you some searches. And Mercurier is basically another hand trap for the deck, so pretty good cards there. This is a really nice package, and I highly suggest that you play it if you're in any branded variant, but it's also very nice in this build, protecting a lot of your fusions. Next up for the one-ofs, we play 1 Despian Comedy. Again, basically the same thing as Mercurier, but this one is a little bit less necessary than Mercurier, and you can cut it if you want to, but sometimes it's nice to have the extra body, and the negate effect is pretty nice. Ad Libitum of Despia, this card can help you OTK in very specific scenarios, but it can also revive stuff from the graveyard, which is pretty much the most important effect, and it's the one that will come up the most often. Next is Dramaturge of Despia, basically a better version of Despian Comedy, and furthermore, Dramaturge of Despia is important for a lot of level-related stuff. The 1 of Psyframe Driver, because you have to play it if you're playing Gamma. And then finally, the big boy SLIFER, the Sky Dragon. This is a really cool printing of SLIFER, the prismatic signed copy by Kazuki Takahashi from the 2019 Mega Packs. Very cool card. Now on to the spells. We have 3 copies of Branded Fusion and 3 copies of Branded Opening, the all-new prismatic secret printing from the Megatins. These are the only 3 of spells, and it's because they're the best ones. Opening gets you all the way to Fusion, and then Fusion is just extremely important in your deck. It's basically the backbone of your entire deck. Very good card. Very good card to resolve at any given time. The best top deck by far. Just a very insane card overall. And you play a ton of copies of it because you have Opening that can get you an Aluber, and Aluber can get you a Branded Fusion. It's very important for this deck specifically because you can send SLIFER the Sky Dragon directly from your deck to the graveyard, which is kind of why Branded works so well with the Revived Sky God stuff. Branded Fusion able to get you a SLIFER readily accessible, very easily. Now for the 1-of spells, we play 1 Branded in Red, 1 Called by the Grave, and 1 Foolish Burial. Foolish, not really a mainstay in a lot of branded builds, but because we're playing the Revived Sky God stuff, we can actually just send SLIFER the Sky Dragon directly to the graveyard with this card, which is pretty important in a lot of cases. You can also set up your graveyard with stuff like Despian Tragedy or Dramaturge, for example. Called by the Grave, there's really no reason not to play this card right now. It's absolutely ridiculous, very, very good against Tearlaments. If you draw this card, it's going to do a ton for you. And then Branded in Red, this is the card that you will be setting off of the sort of end of your normal branded combo if you don't end up going into the SLIFER stuff. You can definitely bump this up to 2 for sure and like cut the Despian Comedy or one of the Tragedies. That is definitely something you can do and something that I would recommend. But yeah, quick play that can fusion summon on your opponent's turn, very, very good. But since this is basically just able to be set directly from your deck, you don't necessarily have to play more than 1. And finally, the triple Revived Sky God, and I will be showing you how this card works, but this card is just absolutely ridiculous. It draws you a ton of cards, up to 6. It can give you bonus advantage if you decide to play Monster Reborn, and it summons out a 6k beater that also floodgates your opponent, so very, very good card. Now moving on to the extra deck. 3 copies of Mirror Jade the Iceblade Dragon. This card is so good that it's enough to pass on in a lot of cases. Next up, we have Triple Albion. This is the mainstay of the deck as well. Very important card for a lot of your basic combos. 2 Lubellion. You can bump this up to 3 if you want to cut something else out of the extra deck, but the card doesn't come up as much as Albion does. You play 1 Predaplant Dracosepelia, just a really good generic fusion monster that you can make pretty easily with this deck, and it's very good against Sprite. 1 Masquerade. I honestly don't think this card is like super important, but it's very generic and very easy to make with this deck, and forcing your opponent to pay a lot of cost can actually total up. 1 Brigand the Glory Dragon. This is a necessity to use in this deck if you want to use Branded Fusion to send SLIFER to the graveyard. The card's not very good though. 1 Titaniclad. This is sort of a card that you're going to want to use if you want to like contact fuse at the end of your opponent's turn, something like that. It's not going to come super often, and normally you're going to want to just use Albion to get bonus advantage for your next turn. In extremely rare and extremely dumb cases, this card can come up to actually help you push for game, but that's not really going to ever happen. Next up is Despian Q. This is the card that is going to help you push for game, and it leaving the field can also special summon some stuff from deck for you to use. And the final fusion monster in this deck is actually supposed to be Guardian Chimera, but unfortunately another member of Team Chrome is currently borrowing my copy of Guardian Chimera, so we had to sort of proxy it. But I made efforts to make sure I didn't have to proxy anything in this video. We just had an unfortunate borrow. At this point, I'm sure everyone knows what Guardian Chimera does, but very good card for getting some card advantage, for putting a big body on the field. It's a pretty generic monster and pretty easy to make, and it can pop problem cards on the field. And finally, we play 1 copy of Dark the Dark Charmer. Obviously, you're going to be locked into fusions if you use your mainline combo. This is sort of a desperation piece if you only have access to some very, very specific effect monsters on the field. Dark is pretty much just the best generic Link 2 monster that you can pretty much play in any deck right now, and it makes the tier matchup not as bad. So it's a viable option, but again, you can cut this and play something else like a 3rd Lubellion or a 2nd Guardian Chimera. And now for how this main combo with SLIFER works. So you're going to want to start with a Revived Sky God in the hand. If you find yourself liking the Revived Sky God stuff a lot more than the normal branded stuff, you can definitely play stuff like Trap Trick to essentially play more copies of Revived Sky God. Or you can play cards like Prosperity. Prosperity is pretty dang good in this deck since you can choose the monsters that you're banishing from your extra deck. And since you run a lot of multiple copies of fusion monsters, you don't really care too much about banishing some of those extra copies. But in this variant of the deck, we are going to have to hard open Revived Sky God, but it is a 3-of, so it's going to happen. So it's going to happen in a lot of your games. And the only other card that we need is Branded Fusion. Branded Fusion can be accessed in a myriad of ways, though. It doesn't just have to be Branded Fusion. This could also be a Luber or Branded Opening or something like that. So you don't have to have the Branded Fusion. It's just something that you can have. Also, any of the lost pieces will eventually get you to a Branded Fusion as well, so you're pretty much always going to have at least one. But anyway, these are the only 2 cards that you need for the Revived Sky God part of the combo. And if you're not doing the Revived Sky God part of the combo, if you don't hard open this card, then you just need Branded Fusion because that will do all of your normal branded plays for you. So here's how this works. First, you want to activate Branded Fusion, and from the deck, you'll be sending SLIFER the Sky Dragon and Fallen of Albaz. You'll then summon Brigand the Glory Dragon, because Brigand lets you use SLIFER as material for it. Now that we have SLIFER in our graveyard, we will simply set the Revived Sky God and pass to the opponent. Then on your opponent's turn, all you have to do is activate Revive Sky God. Revive Sky God will go ahead and let you have a fully protected monster reborn for the SLIFER, the Sky Dragon, and then it will draw you and your opponent 6 cards. But since you're doing this in your opponent's, since you're using this card after your opponent commits to a single play, either a spell or a normal summon or whatever, your opponent will only get to draw 1 card while you get to draw 6. Regardless, SLIFER the Sky Dragon will end up with 6,000 attack. Now the cool thing about SLIFER the Sky Dragon is actually his last effect. Basically, if a monster is normal or special summoned to your opponent's field, so if any monster is summoned to your opponent's field in attack position, then it will lose 2,000 attack, and if it goes to 0, it will destroy the monster automatically. So basically, any good level 4s that your opponent's going to want to normal or special summon will be instantly destroyed by SLIFER, and your opponent won't be able to stick anything on the board. It also makes them just lose attack in general, and they don't have to hit 0 and be destroyed, they still lose the attack. So this weakens your entire opponent's board and basically forces them to skip their battle phase as well. So very, very good card when used for that purpose. And the fact that you get to draw 6 more hand traps and interrupt your opponent so much just off of opening any copy of Branded Fusion plus Revive Sky God is pretty good. So yeah, pretty interesting deck. Very, very easy deck to play. Try checking it out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this build. If you did, be sure to leave a like below and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thanks so much for watching Team Chrome. Catch you next time.